Have you ever wondered what God looks like? Let me tell you, because I know. Hello everyone, this is Xyco, your bad influencer, telling you things you don't want to know and showing you things you don't want to see. Well, what does God look like? Well, I think in all religions it is clear that the ultimate form of the Lord is a spirit. God is a spirit. That's what we all believe, and that's what is written in all the holy books. Now, we all agree, no matter what religion you have, even the agnostics, the skeptics, even some atheists actually told me that they believe that there is a higher power. They just don't want to classify it as God. So I think most of us, we can agree on a higher power, and we can agree that this higher power is, to the best of our knowledge, all powerful. So he or it, or however you want to call it, God can do anything. Anything we can think of, God can do. And we all agree that God created all of us, and not just all of us, but everything. So knowing that God is a spirit and he is all powerful and he can do anything and he can look like anything because his core is spiritual, I've always found it very arrogant of humans to say, no, God looks like us, we look like God, so we are therefore the most important creation, the highest creation. That is so arrogant, that is so presumptuous, especially knowing that there is in heaven, as the religious people believe, in heaven there are these other creatures which we call the angels, and they have, among others, they have humanoid forms, but they are so much more powerful than humans are. So knowing that, to believe that we are the ultimate creation is very presumptuous. I'm saying this because, as I think I've said this before, I've been studying religion, meaning all religions, for 30 plus years, and based on my research in the Hindu religion, they believe that God is in everything, and we are all parts, tiny bits of the same God, of the same. And this actually makes sense, because imagine this. What does it say? And let me quote the Bible. Genesis 1:1 and 1:2. In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So there was nothingness. It was empty. And God was a spirit. This is the tricky part, because science says there was nothing initially, and this is exactly this is exactly where religion and science come together, and neither side wants to admit that both are actually part of the same thing. So then there was the Big Bang. There was nothing, and there was this huge explosion from a singularity, from one single atom, and this atom blew up, and this was created. The universe was created, and it's an ever expanding, because obviously there's a void. The universe has no oxygen or nothing. So this universe, from this one center point in the universe, it started expanding, and it keeps expanding and expanding. So it's becoming bigger. Fine, all good. This is scientifically proven. Now imagine the Spirit of God, of this all-powerful Spirit, when it manifests itself, when it decides to go from spiritual form into physical form. Because in the holy books, Moses actually was face to face with God. If you're familiar with the Dead Sea Scrolls, the book of Enoch, Enoch was the grandfather of Noah. He was pulled into heaven, and he was in the presence of the Lord. So now, at this point, God was not a spirit anymore. But again, if God was a spirit and everything started from him when he manifested himself, imagine the power that must have taken. So for me, the Big Bang is the manifestation of God from spiritual form to physical form. And knowing this means that everything that is alive, everything that breathes and grows and lives in some form or another is a part of God. So therefore, God has all these forms. God can look like a tree. God can look like a fox or a dog or a cat or a whale or a human. This is why in Hindu religion it is forbidden to hurt anything that is alive as much as possible. Why? Because hurting even a blade of grass is hurting a piece of God. A lot of people will say, this is crazy, and yet it makes sense. If it all lives, if it has a life, if it has some sort of reasoning skills, and we cannot say that plants do not have reasoning skills. Plants can actually feed off the environment. There was this experiment that they did in a school. I believe it was somewhere in the US. I don't remember. They had two small branches of the same plant, and they planted them in two different areas of the school, but they made sure that the circumstances, so that the light was the same, that everything, the environment was exactly the same. They just put it far away from each other, the two tiny branches. They planted them, they put it behind glass, and they told the students, one of them, they should praise and say good things and be nice to it, and the other one, they should be mean to it. So insult it, say bad things, curse at it, do whatever you want, just be horrible to it, and the other one, praise it and give it good energy. This is scientifically proven. You can find it online. The one that was getting, the plant that was getting the praise thrived. The plant that was, and they were watering it, so the circumstance was exactly the same. The plant that was insulted and it was cursed at and whatever, that plant died. So you cannot tell me that plants do not have feelings, that they do not suck up the environment, that they do not feel the energy in that environment. The one with the bad energy died, the one with the good energy thrived. Therefore, it has a life, therefore it can feel its surroundings, and therefore it could very well be a piece of this wonderful creation, and therefore a little bit of God. Because God put his life, God put his energy into everything. So So we have to be nicer to each other. We have to be nicer to animals. We have to be nicer to people. We have to be nicer to plants and animals and everything that is alive, because doing that, we are being nicer to God. Now, I know a lot of monotheistic religious people are mocking the Hindus because, oh, they have so many gods and they look like elephants and they look like this and they look... Again, if God is all-powerful and God's basic form is spiritual, then don't you think that God in his might can look like an elephant, can look like a blue whatever guy, can look like a creature with 4 arms? Don't you think God can do anything he wants? Don't you think that God has the power of decision for himself? I know there are religions who would say, oh, God would never do that. God doesn't do that, because how do you know? Who are you to speak for the Lord, for the creator of everything? Do not ever do that. Do not make that assumption. It is so arrogant to think that you know him. So therefore, and this is, with all due respect, this is a message to the Muslims. Stop saying God does not need a son, because you don't know what God needs. You don't decide what God needs. Maybe he doesn't need a son. Maybe he wants Jesus to be his son. In fact, if you read the Old Testament, and if you read, I'm sure it's in the Quran as well. I know for sure it's in the Torah. The Lord himself told King David, because normally, if you're familiar with the way the bloodline of royalty is passed on, the eldest child takes the throne. When the king or the queen abdicate, when they retire, basically, the eldest son or daughter, hopefully son, takes the throne. So Solomon was David's son, but he was not the eldest. The reason Solomon became king after David is because God wanted it that way. And what I read in the Old Testament, it said, I will treat him like my own son. So reading that, we can safely assume that God adopted him, right? So to say Jesus is not God's son, presumptuous. Don't do that. Do not make the assumption that you know better than God what he wants. To say that God cannot look like an elephant or like 4-armed creature or like whatever, or blue, whatever color he wants to look like, presumptuous. Don't do that. Assume that God is all powerful. He can be in anything. He can be anywhere and everywhere at the same time, because he is essentially a spirit. So therefore, we should be nicer to each other. We should see God in everything and everywhere. Be extra careful with what we do. Be extra careful with what we eat, what we destroy. I know, like I said, in Hinduism, hurting any living creature, whether it's human, animal, or plant, it's forbidden. I know Sikhs don't want to eat meat because they say there is no need to take a life in order to sustain ourselves, because if you eat an apple will fall from the tree anyway. It will rot eventually and falls. The tree is still alive. That's just an appendix. We eat it, we're happy. Drinking milk, the cow, if you don't milk it regularly, the udders become very heavy, so the cow becomes uncomfortable. So milking the cow, enjoying the milk, is a good thing. Harvesting anything that will regrow, it's part of that same life cycle, is fine. I know Muslims, I know in Islam it is said you cannot hurt even a tree. You cannot, even if you wage war, you cannot hurt civilians. You cannot hurt plants or animals or anything. So again, based on that, be nicer to each other. Be nicer to everything that God created. See God's creation in everything. And think about this. Don't be arrogant. God can look like anything He wants. He can do everything He wants. So for now, thank you for watching. This was just my view of it. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you have your personal view. I hope you think about this. I hope it makes sense. If it doesn't, like I said, always think for yourself. Do your own research, and I think you'll find the patterns, they coincide quite well. So thank you for watching. Thank you for your patience. Be nicer to each other. Peace. I'll see you on the next one.